What if everything you know about the end of the world is a lie? What if Hollywood, while painting pictures of the apocalypse, is actually lulling us into a false sense of security? Imagine this. You're sitting on your couch watching the latest Netflix hit, House of Dynamite. On screen, there's panic. The White House is burning. Missiles are flying into the void. You're chewing popcorn, thinking, well, it's just a movie. But what if I told you that the real scenario for humanity's destruction has already been written, and it looks nothing like what they're showing you? In this scenario, there are no heroic last-second interceptions, no beautiful explosions in the stratosphere. Instead, there are old battleships that can't fight. There are presidents who confuse sleeping with blinking. There are drones made of sticks that are changing the course of history. And there is a missile that can fly forever, radiating death while you sleep. Today, we're going to piece together the puzzle of early 2026. We'll break down why Trump wants to bring back battleships, why Putin invented an assassination attempt on himself, and why the real nuclear threat isn't coming from space, but from treetop level. This is What If, and today we're asking, what if World War III looks nothing like we prepared for? Let's start with what scares us. You've probably heard of the movie House of Dynamite. The plot is simple and terrifying. An unidentified ballistic missile is heading for Chicago. No one knows where it came from. The U.S. satellite constellation is blind. Drama, suspense, a 50-50 chance. Will they shoot it down or not? Sounds exciting? Absolutely. But what if I told you that from a physics standpoint, this is total nonsense, and this nonsense is dangerous? In the movie, they tell us the satellites didn't see the launch because of the clouds. Seriously? Let's break this down. The U.S. Early Warning System, SBIRS, isn't just a set of cameras. These are the infrared eyes of God. When an intercontinental ballistic missile launches, it releases so much heat that it's visible through any clouds, fog, or bad weather. The plume temperature is thousands of degrees Kelvin. To the satellite sensor, it's like turning on a searchlight in a pitch-black room. MIT professor Theodore Postol destroyed this movie's premise. He said it plainly. It is impossible not to know where a missile is coming from. We would know the launch point within a kilometer, instantly. And that is the main lie. They make us fear that we won't see the enemy. But the truth is, in a classic nuclear war, we would see everything. We'd know who fired within 30 seconds, and 30 minutes later, a retaliatory strike would turn the aggressor into radioactive ash. That is the doctrine of deterrence, mutually assured destruction. But what if the rules of the game have changed? What if a weapon has appeared that breaks this logic? A weapon that satellites really don't see. And this isn't Netflix sci-fi. While we were discussing movie plot holes, in the fall of 2025, an event happened that many missed. Vladimir Putin announced successful tests of the Buravest missile. What if I told you this is the scariest technology since Hiroshima? Imagine a cruise missile. It looks normal at first glance, but inside there is no fuel tank. Inside there is a nuclear reactor. This allows it to stay in the air not for hours, but for days, weeks. It can take off, circle the Earth, change its mind, fly over the South Pole, bypass all U.S. air defenses, and strike from behind. Why does this change everything? First, the launch. It doesn't have a giant heat plume like an ICBM. A solid fuel booster works for a few seconds and then the reactor kicks in. Satellites looking for heat might simply miss the launch if it happens, say, from Novaya Zemlya in bad weather. Second, the altitude. ICBMs fly through space. Radars see them from thousands of miles away. The Buravest flies low, hugging the terrain. Radars will only see it when it's too late. This is the concept of a first disarming strike. Picture this. You're the President of the United States. Your satellites are silent. Radars are clear. And suddenly, without warning, your missile silos, your submarine bases, your command centers are destroyed. You don't even have time to push the red button because you didn't even know the war had started. Putin calls this a weapon of vengeance, but experts realized back in 2019 after the Grom exercises that the Kremlin isn't preparing to deter, but to win. The Buravest is an attempt to break nuclear parity. It's an attempt to win a game where there are no winners. Of course, there are nuances. The missile is subsonic. If it's found, it's easy to shoot down. But will it be found? The American F-35 and F-22 fighters in Alaska are magnificent, but can they intercept a swarm of nuclear missiles creeping through mountain gorges? That is the million-life question. But the war of 2026 isn't just fought with missiles, it's being fought in our heads. What if the main front line right now isn't in the trenches but on YouTube and Twitter? Look at the story of Nick Shirley, an American vlogger, a good-looking guy, goes to Kyiv. He films videos, cool cars, open restaurants, people drinking coffee. The message is clear. Look, there is no war, why are we giving them money? J.D. Vance, the U.S. vice president, calls him the best journalist. But then British investigator Kaylin Robertson steps in. He finds the people who drove Nick around, and a terrible truth comes out. Nick was shown a bombed-out children's hospital. He was shown ruins. He was shown death. But he just cut it out. He left only the lattes and the Mercedes. This is the modern weapon of mass destruction, half-truths, and this infection reaches the very top. Look at President Trump. It's early 2026. Trump claims my approval rating is 64%, even though Gallup gives him 34%. He says there is no inflation, while Americans are counting pennies in grocery stores. But the most absurd part is his health. Have you seen his hands? They are covered in terrible bruises. The whole world is guessing. What is it? A blood disease? IV drips? And what does Trump answer? It's aspirin. I take a lot of aspirin, so my blood is thin and beautiful. And when he gets caught sleeping at meetings, he delivers a line worthy of an Oscar. I'm not sleeping, I'm just blinking slowly and thinking. Why am I telling you this? Because if the leader of a superpower lies about bruises and sleeping, will he tell the truth about a nuclear threat? Will he react adequately to real challenges? The information space is clogged with bots, fakes, and slow blinking, and in this fog, it is very easy to miss a real strike. Now, let's transport ourselves to the Pentagon. You'd think the most powerful army in the world would be preparing for the war of the future, but what if the generals are preparing for the war of the past? Donald Trump, speaking to the Marines, makes a shocking statement. He wants to bring back battleships. Yes, those giants like the Missouri, 45,000 tons of steel, massive guns. Trump says they are beautiful, they are tough. The aluminum of modern ships melts, but steel doesn't. Sounds brutal, but let's face the truth. The battleship is a dinosaur. In the era of hypersonic missiles and smart torpedoes, armor thickness doesn't matter. A modern Arleigh Burke-class destroyer is 5 times smaller than a battleship, but it can simultaneously shoot down satellites, sink submarines, and destroy cities with Tomahawk missiles. China understands this. Beijing is stamping out its Type 052D destroyers like sausages. They're not building battleships, they're building a fleet of drones and missile platforms. And here we come to the main problem. The Rand Corporation, the very people who devised the strategy to win the Cold War, is sounding the alarm. The US has forgotten how to mass-produce weapons. While the Pentagon argues about the gender agenda and the beauty of ships, China has captured 40% of the global market for so-called legacy chips, older generation chips. Why are they needed? You don't put the newest 3-nanometer processor in a missile or a tank. It will burn out. You need simple, reliable chips, 28 nanometers and up, and China makes them. It's a paradox. The US blocks China's access to AI, but relies on China to produce ordinary shells and drones. Ukraine produces tens of thousands of drones a month. The Pentagon buys 4,000 a year. Do you feel the difference? The war of the future isn't a duel of beautiful ships, it's a swarm of cheap, deadly drones controlled by cheap chips. And while Trump dreams of battleships, America risks losing this race before the first shot is fired. And here we come to the climax, the event that ties it all together: lies, drones, and geopolitics. End of 2025. The world is frozen in anticipation. Trump and Zelensky are negotiating. Peace seems possible. Security guarantees for Ukraine are being discussed, possibly even U.S. bases. For Putin, this is a catastrophe. He needs a reason to blow it all up. And suddenly, on December 29th, Russia declares Ukraine tried to kill Putin, a massive drone attack on the Valdai residence. The Kremlin talks about 91 drones. Lavrov is running around with maps. The GRU summons the American military attaché and shows him a drone controller. But let's turn on some critical thinking. They show us the wreckage of a Chakloon V drone. Friends, this is a light reconnaissance plane. It buzzes, flies slowly, and carries a camera. Attacking the most protected bunker in the world, guarded by dozens of Panzer and S-400 systems with this? It's suicide. It's like throwing paper airplanes at a tank. It gets better. The Russian Ministry of Defense shows a map where drones shot down near Bryansk were supposedly flying to Putin. That's 300 miles away from Valdai. How did they know they were flying to Putin? Do drones have a "to Valdai" sign on them? There's only one witness, a guy named Igor whom no one in his village knows. No videos of explosions, no fires, silence. The US reaction was instant. The CIA just laughed. Satellite imagery showed there was no attack on the residence. The Ukrainians hit military ammo depots in a neighboring region, and they hit them successfully. This whole story is a cheap stage play, a GRU show as the British called it. The goal was simple: scare Trump. Say, look, Zelensky is a terrorist. He wants to kill me. Call off the negotiations. But Trump, for all his eccentricity, didn't buy it. He reposted an article saying that Putin himself is blocking peace with his fakes. But what if this staging is a sign of desperation? What if the Kremlin has no trump cards left other than inventing assassination attempts on itself? So, what do we have at the beginning of 2026? We live in a world where Netflix lies about physics and presidents lie about their bruises. In a world where one superpower builds a flying Chernobyl to bypass radars, and the other dreams of bringing battleships back from museums. In a world where the outcome of war is decided not by admirals, but by the number of cheap chips in a warehouse. And in a world where dictators are ready to bomb their own forests to sabotage peace talks. But what if the biggest threat isn't a missile or a drone? What if the threat is our inability to distinguish truth from fiction? While we laugh at the house of dynamite, real dynamite has already been placed under the foundation of our safety. Watch the news, check the facts, and remember, reality is always scarier than the movies. This was What If. Subscribe to know what to prepare for. See you next time.